balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello! Welcome, Whiskey Warriors and all of the other Americans who are out there. Welcome to American Perspective with me, Rick Thomas. Real quick shout out, and the only reason why I'm doing this is because the individual is going to be leaving soon, but really quick shout out to Z and D. So Z graduated yesterday. I believe it's from cosmetology college, and now Z and D apparently are getting engaged or have gotten engaged. So another congratulations out to them for doing that. And wait, where's my, there it is. Here it is. Oh, come on. There we go. There's the celebration. All right, so bam, over on Rumble. If you could send that out, we'd appreciate it. All right. So wow, so much to get to, so much to get to. And so yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we have 3 Chevy leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And so if you would please stand, remove your hats, put your hand over your heart, and follow 3 Chevy from over on Rumble Land in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much for that, 3 Chevy. And if you would like to get your version of the Pledge of Allegiance on the air, please record yourself reciting it, of course, and then send it in to me, email it to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans at americanperspective.online. All right. You know, I've been kind of pushing the flag shirt folks, and I wear their shirts often. But tonight I am in my shirt. So you can check it out right here. There it is. This is the black version, black shirt version with my original and #1 logo. You can find that and a bunch of other wonderful things to buy with my logo on it at store.americanperspective.online. Show off your support of the program, and of course I appreciate it as well. But show off your support by going to store.americanperspective.online and selecting a wonderful t-shirt, tank top, sweatshirt. There's also hoodies. There's even glasses and mugs for those who are coffee drinkers, and that kind of thing. So go to store.americanperspective.online and check out my offering. Of course, it's all full of logos. I've got 3 different versions, variations of my logo there. You can pick it up. It's got a couple different colors for each one, so you can go and check that out. Go to store.americanperspective.online, and I appreciate all of that. So that would be fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and get into the delving. Well, obviously last night, and no, you know, looking at my video title here, or my episode title here, you might think I'm being critical of the RNC and the Trump speech. No, I am not. We will get into that. Well, at least not specifically. We will get into that in just a little bit here. But unfortunately, I had to watch it the next morning because I lost power last night right before Trump came on. And so I ended up having to wait until the power came back, of course, to be able to view his speech. But we have a few more things that have come out with regards to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and get right into that. First things first. Apparently now, according to this piece in Town Hall, there was a classmate of the would-be assassin who says that he was a known Trump hater, but the feds apparently still don't know the motive. Now, just to recall, just so everybody remembers, they looked into his phone. They didn't find anything in his phone. They looked in his laptop. He left a message on some gamer board channel or something like that. And so that was going on. And yeah, so apparently, I mean, again, and the left keeps saying, oh, he was a registered Republican. Well, the problem with that is the fact that he donated to Act Blue. And because he donated to Act Blue, I can promise you there is no Republicans that donate to Act Blue. But in terms of that, his donation to Act Blue indicates support for the Democrats. And in Pennsylvania, it is my understanding that you don't have to, you essentially don't have to, you have to register as one or the other to vote in the primary. And he registered as a Republican in order to vote in the primary, which would have been his first, because he's 20 years old. It would have been his first election cycle, this cycle. And so he registered as a Republican, presumably to vote for somebody like Nikki Haley or someone along those lines. So the whole idea that he was a Republican doing this is kind of far-fetched, to be completely honest with you. And that's just the way the thing is. Well, speaking of the left and how, let's say, unhinged they actually are, the Daily Fetched pulled you gotta love the picture here. For those of you who aren't on Rumble, you really need to go and check it out. If you're listening on the audio portion of the program, you gotta go check you gotta go check this out. Joy Reid apparently is suggesting that the Trump assassination attempt was staged, that the whole thing was put together as, and she's floated this idea as a completely unhinged conspiracy theory. I guarantee you it was not staged. There is absolutely no way that anyone would attempt or even think of attempting to do something like this. I mean, how unhinged do you have to be to believe that somebody would shoot live rounds into a crowd of people? Now, if it was blanks and nobody got hurt, okay, very poor taste, poor joke, whatever. But seriously, somebody died. You stupid woman. Somebody died. 2 people got injured. Well, 3 people got injured if you count Donald Trump. Seriously, I mean, this is completely unhinged leftist lunacy right here. Totally leftist lunacy. And yeah, so her going off and assuming that it was staged, they don't even, I mean, they're claiming that his ear, that's another thing that's being run across, is that his ear is essentially a fake, okay? And that they don't have, and this is part of her argument. She's like, well, where's the doctor's reports? Where's the notes? Where's the medical information? I mean, we get medical information on Joe Biden and him having his COVID and everything. We get doctors talking about that. But here we are. She's just freaking nuts. She's like, we have no details. We actually have no details from his physician. Even though this man is still Secret Service protected and a presidential candidate. Yeah, she's just freaking nuts. She's just, I mean, just a lunatic. But the problem with somebody like this, and this is true across the board for the left, okay, is essentially that there are people who actually listen to her, and places like The View, which is full of cackling hens sitting around a table spewing all kinds of far off theories and thoughts and things that I would swear they have no filter. It's just whatever pops into their brain is what comes out their mouth, kind of thing. But apparently people like this attract other people like this. Because in the Washington Free Beacon, Blue Anon rears its head. 1/3 of Dems believe conspiracy theory that Trump staged the assassination attempt. Okay, look, I'm going to tell you right now. Because I have been shot at, all right? I've never been shot, but I have been shot at. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is zero chance that somebody would be willing to go and put themselves at the closeness of a freaking bullet. There's absolutely no way. These people are completely freaking unhinged. They are nuts. I've been saying leftists, and I've even gone like on the socials now, anybody that like even talks about saying that they are going to be voting for Joe Biden after all of this debacle bullcrap, okay, that I'm calling them morons. They're straight up morons. These people are absolutely lunatic morons if they actually believe that Donald Trump would willingly be putting himself in harm's way and have a person shot on the other end and died. I can't even understand how anybody would even come up with this. And to promote this, for Joy Reid to promote this bullshit theory, she needs to go. I'm sorry, she needs to be committed into a mental hospital for something, because this is obviously not it. This is not a stable individual. Okay. Right? I mean, there's absolutely no way. Once that bullet leaves that barrel, okay, just as an example, once that bullet leaves that barrel, there's nothing controlling it. There's nothing, there's nothing, there's no wire, there's no, oh, you got close and I can swing it around. No. That freaking thing is affected by weather, by all kinds of stuff. This is just absolutely freaking nuts. Totally nuts. And to even perpetuate this is making it even worse in terms of the idea that Trump is no longer in danger. He is in danger. Okay? He constantly is in danger. And in fact, he might even be in worse danger right now just because of the fact that somebody tried and missed. In the Line of Fire, the movie by Clint Eastwood, who he, was talking about, it was dealing with the presidential assassination and a Secret Service agent. And then, of course, John Malkovich was the bad guy. In there, it's very clearly stated, and this is entirely true. And I'm going to paraphrase. But a motivated person, no matter what happens, a motivated person who is hell-bent on doing something, you can't necessarily stop them. The Secret Service can't necessarily stop them. What they can do, however, is they can hope that instead of getting Donald Trump, that they get one of the Secret Service agents. In personal protective details like this, that's the key. Is that and that's part of the reason why when you see somebody who's, going for a protective detail, they're standing up, they're getting big, they're blocking the shot, they're making it so that you can't see who you're hitting or whatever. They put themselves, the body, in between. This is essentially the business of personal protection. And yes, I used a Hollywood movie for that reference, but the point is, though, is that is the mentality that you have to have in that space, is that I'm going to take a bullet for somebody. I'm going to take a bullet for somebody else. That's my job. That's what I'm being paid to do. And then all you have to do is hope and pray that you are never the one to have to worry about it. These people are just, they're totally freaking crazy. I can't even believe it. All right. Well, I went and broke last night the twit the twit. Well, they are twits, the Democrats. The Democrat leftist lunatic morons that are running around in this world and voting and procreating and so on and so forth. But anyway, I digress. So I broke last night. There was a Twitter X account that talked about Joe Biden being encouraged that he was probably going to step out of the race. He was likely going to do it by this weekend, more than likely Sunday, that Kamala Harris was not going to get his endorsement, that there potentially was going to be an open Democratic convention, so on and so forth. And if you recall, I've been talking about on this program, I've been talking about the fact that the only way that they would ever really push Joe Biden out is honestly if he starts losing cash. And then I showed you the reports of the Democrat donors, the mega donors, who have put a hold on their funding. There was, close to $100 million in his, quote, war chest, that 90 million of it was reportedly being held up by those mega donors. Well, now he's even getting worse information. So this in town hall, that he's getting, some more bad polling. Of course, I showed you last night that Donald Trump got a little bit of a bump based off of the weekend, the assassination attempt. Well, you also have more Democrat senators, congressmen. Nancy Pelosi is reportedly working behind the scenes. You have Obama, who has suggested to Biden's aides that he needs to step away from being, from running as president again. You have Adam Schiff, who came out very publicly and said that Biden needs to step down and make way for some younger people, so on and so forth. Well, now, according to this article in Town Hall, his campaign is also apparently running out of money at the same time. Now, you would okay, some people would look at that and go, oh, well, that's kind of an unconfirmed report. I mean, who the heck knows? Blah, blah, blah. Well, his own campaign chair acknowledges what he calls support slippage. Now, after I announced that, I started, posting there or reposting, retweeting, whatever, copying and pasting. I don't know what the heck it is, but going around on all of the X accounts that are like, hey, I'm 100% behind Biden. And I'd be like, he may not even be in the race. And I would post that X account on it. Well, now, apparently, according to the White House is saying, yeah, that's not going to happen. That he is not stepping down. He has announced that he is staying in, so on and so forth. And so, we're just going to kind of have to see what happens here. But in terms of Sunday being the day, well, that very well could still come, because this apparent headline came out from Red State: Biden family discussing exit plans. And then the questions being asked, are deals being made? Now, here's the thing. Joe Biden is a narcissist. Joe Biden is a money-hungry machine. That is why he has done all of the things that he has done in terms of trying to, that he actually took classified documents when he was a senator and a vice president, when he never should have had them. He had several deals going on through his bagman, Hunter Biden. We all know all about that. And it's being continually, hopefully it's still being continually worked on. However, we only have about 4 more months until the election, so we'll just have to see about this. Now, I'm also hearing too, or at least it's also being reported, I should say, that Kamala Harris is actually starting to make some moves herself. So that'll be interesting. But the thing you have to understand, though, is that they are running out of time. They literally are running out of time. I've been hearing that the DNC is going to be, again, I think it's August 1st is the date that I've been hearing. So they are going to be looking for a solution sometime in the next couple of weeks, because realistically, we're in the middle to, just a little bit be past the middle of July. We only have a couple more weeks until the DNC gets together and nominates their individual. So, again, it's there's word that his family, which honestly, that's going to be his biggest driver, is his family. I mean, Dr. Jill, the greatest doctor of all doctors, who has never worked on a single patient, who is a doctorate of education, but she is greater than all of the other doctors that we have, even like internationally known neurosurgeons. Dr. Jill surpasses all of them. She is the one that is actually going to be the one who pulls the strings here and decides whether or not Joe is going to stay in the race or not. Because let's face it, Oatmeal Brains is not. He may want to stay in the race, and he'll sit there screaming and hollering, I want to be in the race. I'm in the race. I'm the greatest president of every president that ever presidented in the presidential history of presidents. He's going to sit there and yell and scream all about it. But let's face it, if Jill and Hunter, and keep in mind too, I mean, again, the key here is to remember that Hunter might be looking for Joe to stay in until the very end. So hopefully he gets a pardon, because his sentencing is coming up. His sentencing hearing is coming up soon. I think it's in September. So they might be looking to drag Joe across the finish line there. Yeah. Anyway, we'll just kind of have to see. I mean, right now, again, they're saying there's rumors that are saying this weekend is going to be a big weekend. So we'll see. But again, the Biden family and the Biden administration are still sticking with, I'm in this race, I'm staying in this race, and that's how it goes. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Even Donald Trump, in his speech last night, kind of mentioned that the Democrats couldn't even figure out who was going to go up against him. And he kind of made a hint about Kamala Harris as well being the pick, which, realistically, as I've said on this program before, she kind of has to be the pick, because otherwise it could be a bit of a problem in terms of the money aspect. And I'm also hearing too, at least through some reports, that there is a potential that some of the Democrat donors are looking beyond Joe and are looking to just give up the money that they've put forth to Joe and just be like, okay, we're done, and go down to the down ballot races, and are planning on putting more money down there, which would kind of fall in line with the reports that we're getting that, the money is running out, that the campaign is suffering from slow donations and things of that nature. So we'll kind of have to see what the heck happens here. But of course, the thing is that we always have to take a look at odds and betting and everything else. And so this article in the New York Post came out, and Biden's odds of dropping out of 2024 election soar to 84% as that announcement of him doing some soul searching came out. So the likelihood was at 84% and rising as of early this morning, according to the predictive betting website of Polymarket. And keep in mind, betting sites, I think, are a little bit more accurate than, say, some of your average pollsters. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens. Anyway. So yeah, we still don't know whether Biden is going to stay in the race or if he is going to drop out. There's conflicting reports everywhere about it. And so we'll just have to see. This is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to pay attention to, obviously, because, you know, depending upon who ends up in his place. And let's be honest, okay? Let's be completely honest. Going and having the Democrat candidate change midstream like this is relatively unprecedented. And at the same time, though, you also have the fact that should another Democrat candidate, so let's just say, for an example, Gavin Newsom decides to step in, become either Kamala's second in command or potentially even usurping Kamala, okay? They have this open convention and they put forth, you know, Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer, some of these longer term politicians who have been in the game for a little bit longer than just yesterday. Do you really think that they're going to want to hitch their entire political careers to whether or not they can beat Donald Trump in a short period of time? I mean, this is some of the questions that have to be asked is, are they going to be able to turn things around? Because no matter what happens, okay, if they step in front of the American people who, for the most part, as of right now, want Joe to go, in terms of the Democrats, us, you know, on the conservative side, we want him to stay in because he's pretty much, you know, imploding himself. And so Donald Trump doesn't really have to do a whole heck of a lot. But let's just take this example and kind of stretch it out a little bit here. If it's somebody like Gavin Newsom is going to have to go up against Trump, mount a winning platform. So he essentially inherits whatever Joe has already done, which, let's face it, Joe hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot. And people are very well aware of what Joe has failed to do. And so Gavin Newsom would have to mount a national platform and realistically could potentially have to walk back a lot of what Joe has done and what Joe has been touting as his next 4 years plan. So this is almost like shooting the Democrats in the foot. And it's definitely whoever decides to step up in that place outside of Kamala Harris, of course, because she's already hitched her wagon to the Biden train. But if that falls, if that whole thing falls, as far as, whoever steps in, I don't think they're going to want, and none of these people who could potentially have an opportunity to win against Donald Trump, I don't think they're going to want to hook that to and lay that bet down in terms of some of the older Democrats. Rather, they're probably just saying, you know what? We don't care. We're going to move on to 2028. Because if I were Gavin Newsom, I'd be like, God, this is a train wreck. I don't want to try to fix all of this crap in such a short period of time. And so I would want to carry on to the next thing. And so it's going to be very interesting to see if they replace Joe and Kamala isn't the choice, or even if Kamala is the choice, who she ends up picking as her secondary mate. Because even if she runs and fails, and the secondary person, I mean, that's almost political suicide, I would think, in quite a big story. All right. So let's talk a little bit about last night. And while eyes were on the Trump RNC and the Trump campaign, something major happened in the digital world. And this is something that, now, keep in mind, okay, this has been a focus and a fear on a lot of people's minds in terms of, especially those who actually work in my normal 9 to 5, okay? But this happened last night, and this affected everybody. So last night, for those that may not be aware, a couple of things happened. One, Amazon's web service, okay, had an outage, and this was part of their Azure cloud-based operation. Now, normally that wouldn't be that big of a deal, okay? So, you know, the cloud-based system, all right, that's cool. Anybody that was using Azure would have a potential challenge with Azure by itself. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the bigger thing that happened was one company, one simple company called CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike apparently sent out an update to just a boatload of Windows computers. Now, Windows operating systems, so basically there's like three or four major operating systems. You basically have Unix, Linux, which is a derivative of Unix. You have Windows operating system, and then you have the Mac Apple system. Okay. Now Unix and Linux are kind of in the same vein, and Linux is much more out there than Unix. But keep in mind, I mean, both of those are sort of part of the same run. Now, the thing that I've found completely fascinating in this particular sense is that Windows has taken a hold here in the United States. It is the leading operating system in all aspects of most people. Outside of the personal computing realm, where Apple has kind of picked up with like the Apple iPhone and the whole Apple ecosystem in the consumer market. But in the commercial market, meaning the businesses, everybody relies on Windows. I mean, there is nothing that anybody can do in America that doesn't touch Windows. You have, Office 365, which is the business thing. You have, there's so many different programs and things that Microsoft has in its repertoire that is heavily used by the businesses. And this is where the problem comes in. So last night, CrowdStrike apparently pushed a update that had a defective kernel driver. And essentially all computer systems, just really quickly, all computer systems have this thing called as the kernel. It's the internal base operating system. Everything that runs on that computer utilizes the kernel in some way, shape, or form, and accesses it in some way, shape, or form. So if your kernel dies or has a problem, that affects everything. Well, in this particular case, this kernel driver went and sent all of the Windows machines that got the update into what is being described as a reboot death spiral. For those of you that remember Windows 95 and Windows 98, it was known as the blue screen of death, the BSOD. And anyway, so what ended up happening is this spread throughout realistically the U.S. for the most part, but also in the world. And this is wherein lies the scary part of the problem. This took down air travel, hospitals, banks, delivery services, pretty much anybody that uses CrowdStrike, okay, had its computer system affected. Now, this is not, I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. As of right now, this is not related to any kind of a hacking incident. However, this just demonstrates how destructive a hacking incident could be now that this has occurred and is widely publicized and populated. There's enough information here that a hacker could start, or a nefarious state actor could potentially create a virus that attacks CrowdStrike in particular and creates a problem where it could crash our entire system just on an update. This is very, very dangerous and should honestly, I mean, backup systems, there's usually, typically when you build something like this, you typically have some type of redundancy and backup system for this in order to try and avoid all of this. Apparently that didn't work because all of the systems that were affected were all, it was whether they were backups or not, it didn't really matter. And actually, 3 Chevy points out, my concern is that something like this could disrupt the supply chain. It was disrupted last night. It was disrupted last night. There are several shipping companies that got hit with it as well. And as you can see in this article here in the Washington Examiner, it caused problems worldwide. But it's also caused other, various other industries. This was worldwide for airlines, but it also caused other industries, all the way even to from government and the media. Now, CrowdStrike has said in a statement that the problem has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed, and stressed that it was not the result of a hack or a security breach. And the point that I wanted to make here is that if you notice, CrowdStrike, here's the statement, okay? CrowdStrike is actively working with customers impacted by a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts. Mac and Linux hosts are not impacted. The company said this is not a security incident or cyber attack. Now, the big 3 domestic airlines, America, United, and Delta, have all resumed departures. Everything is okay for that goes, but I can tell you they were all sitting around. There were a lot of people who were stuck in airports because of this. They were several flights that were canceled and delayed departing Milwaukee on Thursday. So yeah, it just imagine something like this that could affect not only all of these systems, but could also affect power. I mean, everybody talks about our power grid being aging and needing replacing. Well, it could, we could also look at something like this and be uptight. So this kind of event, these are one of those things that they call, that could potentially become a black swan event. But granted, this was a coding and an internal problem, but it does open up and present to people like myself about the danger and the potential vulnerability that we have within our computer systems, that we have now found a vulnerability, or we've had a vulnerability discovered inadvertently in the business. We call those undocumented features. So yeah, not to mention the fact that we also, as Palms points out on Rumble, that just goes to show how much our society depends on computers and the internet, which again, I'm going to throw out and remind people that every single computer item that we have in our system worldwide, 90% of those devices come from or have in them some sort of a Taiwanese chip or Taiwan technology. So, think about this and think about the whole thing with Taiwan potentially being taken over by China. This just emphasizes even more, especially in my mind, how important it is that we do not let China take over Taiwan. Clearly, this is a particular situation. So, yeah. Redundant systems apparently were offline and failing and so on and so forth. So, yeah, as Mark over on Facebook mentions, buy books and encyclopedias. It may be helpful one day. He ain't lying. And the CEO apologizes, of course, for the faulty software update that apparently caused the global economic mayhem. So, yeah. This was before 6 a.m. on Friday. George Kurtz, who is the CEO of the Texas-based cybersecurity giant CrowdStrike, that's what it is, cybersecurity, okay, took to social media to acknowledge that a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts had led to a major breakdown in Microsoft operations. So, yeah, there's 18,000. They listed 18,000 flights from around the world were grounded, 1,200 by itself in the U.S. alone, according to joint reporting of The Hill and the Associated Press. Banks and 911 dispatches stations were also thrown offline. Even the Sphere in Las Vegas was affected, projecting the dreaded blue screen of death into the night sky. So, yeah, there you go. It's just a simple mistake, or supposedly a simple mistake, that threw everything into chaos, and how much we tie together for, yeah, like you said, tying together for technology, and how much we depend on technology is scary. So, all right. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks now as we head on into the end of the hour. Trump accepted the Republican National Convention's nomination to be the nominee for President of the United States, to be their candidate. And in typical, RNC fashion, it's been building to the crescendo of last night. We had, speeches by a whole bunch of different people, et cetera, and so essentially it built right up to the nominee, Donald Trump, getting on stage and speaking. The idea was that he was going to give a speech that was going to profess unity. He did that. The idea was that he was going to give a speech that was going to potentially demonstrate that his experience on Saturday has changed him in some factor. I believe he did that. The idea also was that he was going to lay out his plan moving forward and the platform that he was going to run under. He did that. Now, I have been critical of Donald Trump. I'll be, as far as I'm concerned, I have a hard time following his speaking style. It is often, he goes off script. He injects things into it, and I personally, this is just me speaking, I personally have times where it's difficult to follow. The first 20 minutes of his speech last night was, to me, perfect. It was on point. He brought in feelings. He explained, what had happened on Saturday. He included, personal feelings. He included, he wasn't the bombastic Trump that we normally would see at a rally. or that we normally have seen at a rally, in my personal opinion. However, after that, he did go off and start, I would assume he went off script and off the teleprompter and started feeding off the crowd, which is exactly what Trump does. And that is why he is, I mean, let's face it, that's where he's made his bones for the most part in this business, is being the showman. That's why he was very successful with The Apprentice and things of that nature. He did a couple of things that, of course, the left has been trying to glom onto. And it was also a very long speech. I mean, it was over 90 minutes. I think it was like something like 93 or 98 minutes. And generally speaking, just to be clear, a lot of people can't follow that long. And apparently I'm not the only one that has necessarily had a problem with or had issues with listening to Trump and his speaking style, but it is a very natural style. It's the way that he tends to, approach all of his public speaking gigs. And keep in mind, this isn't necessarily a bad criticism. It's just letting you all know that, for me, it's a little hard to swallow. I have a coworker who is in my regular 9 to 5, who also has a very long, drawn out kind of style, and I have a hard time following him when he's doing presentations. So it's the content, though, is what is really important here, not so much the style. And for content, he did what I would consider to be a very good job presenting what it was that the party is going to stand for, the things that they are against in terms of his vision against the Democrats, what the Democrats did and have done and are still doing today. But one particular point that I want to make is that the Democrats are going to grab onto little things, for an example, like the name on the back of Corey's jacket. Now, Corey, and I'm not going to try, and Comparatore, I think is how it's pronounced. But Corey's firefighting gear was brought to the convention, and they put up a memorial for for him, and they put up the equipment, his jacket, his helmet, up in a memorial service, much like what the military do with somebody's boots, and in my case in the Army, M16 and their hat. They do these kinds of things in order to demonstrate a memorial. And Trump went over and gave recognized it, put his hand on it, gave the helmet a kiss. And by that, he essentially lit off the left. The left started criticizing him for that kind of action. And that's mostly because the left they are, like I said in the beginning, they're complete morons. But the one thing that they caught that is completely off base, much like their Project 2025 bullshit, they caught the name at the bottom of the jacket. Comparatore. Now, his last name is 11 letters long. The fire department, as far as I know, or the family, somebody has already released a statement that explains that his name is misspelled on his jacket, but that even though it was, Corey didn't bother to correct it. didn't bother to send it in. So the left tried to glom on to the idea that this was a fake display, that this wasn't actually Corey's gear. And that has already been debunked, because once again, the left, all the left can do is lie, lie, lie. Now, the Donald Trump that I heard was somebody who I would say was still trying to process what had happened with him. And also understanding that he is and has gone through what would essentially be a very close call. And the realization for anybody that has had that happen to them, the realization that, oh my gosh, I could have died. That is very impactful on a person. And it generally tends to make people think differently about life and prioritization of things in life. And so what I saw last night was a very thoughtful Trump, a more reserved Trump, but a very determined Trump, a very courageous Trump, because he is going to push on into the next evolution of his life, and he will eventually use this experience to, hopefully, at least the idea would be, to enrich himself and make his perspective a little more focused and clear in terms of where he is going next. Now, the left claims that Donald Trump, when Donald Trump introduced J.D. Vance, that he mispronounced Vance's name. I didn't hear that. I don't know where they got that idea. I have no idea, but they are continually trying to make a Trump out to be on par with their geriatric, oatmeal-brained moron who's in the White House. That's not the person that I saw. Trump, again, he's one of those types of people that, at least in my observations, you know, he is very transactional in his thoughts. But at the same time, he does feed off of the crowd. And he does feed off of a crowd in front, which is part of the reason why CNN did not want, or the Biden team did not want, a crowd in front of Trump during the debates. That was one of the reasons, is because Trump is a showman. Okay. But that being said, last night, he was a reserved showman. He wasn't the usual. I don't want to use I don't necessarily want to use the term flamboyant, but it's kind of along the lines of what I'm thinking of. He was a lot more conserved in his speaking. He was conserved in his message. And he was relatively conserved with his rhetoric too. And that's not necessarily, by the way, the use of the word rhetoric is not necessarily in a negative way. Okay. I think he did go through a change in that moment when he realized that, hey, my life here is on the line. But rather than backing out, he demonstrated, just like he did when he stood back up on that stage and in Butler and held a defiant fist over his head and was essentially pointing out to the crowd, I'm alive, I am going to continue. And then he followed that up with the words, fight, fight, fight. Now, there's a story about Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, after he had gotten shot, when they brought him to the hospital, he did not want to be, brought in on a stretcher. Ronald Reagan walked into the hospital after being shot. And the reason being is because of the fact that he wanted to demonstrate and make sure to keep the hopes up of the American people. He did not want to appear to have any kind of weakness, because Ronald Reagan realized that while he was a man, it was the office that had to project that kind of strength. Trump did the exact same thing. Trump, when he got to the hospital, he walked into the hospital. Now, I'm not trying to compare and contrast their wounds, definitely not. But a lesser person could have been, I mean, I'm sorry, I've split my ear open. It freaking hurts, and it bleeds like a son of a gun. Like he said last night, the ear is one of the most bloodiest places to get hit in any way, shape, or form. And it bleeds, and it doesn't stop bleeding very easily either. And so for him to, in the moment, react the way that he did, and even carry it on further, just demonstrates the individual inside. And while the left sits here and tries to tear this man down even further, I'm going to tell you that incident, I mean, I was behind Trump before anyway because of his policies. Now, I'm behind Trump because of the character that I have seen, the courageousness that I have seen, the bravery that I have seen, the wherewithal that I have seen, the determination that I have seen. And it's the same attitude that 98-year-old World War II veteran summed up, not last night, but the night before, when he said that he would sign up to follow Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. Once again, even at 98 years old. This man and the left has tried to tear him down. He has been clearly chosen for some purpose, because there is no way, after analyzing all of the angles of the shots and everything else for this past attempt on his life, the fact that he actually moved his head at the proper moment, just at the moment that he needed in order to have it miss his head and be a more severe injury, possibly even death. There is something that this guy has. And being a believer in God and in his works and his ways, he's showing us something right now. He is showing us something right now. That this doesn't mean that, I'm going to worship Trump. But God has a plan for Trump. And apparently he's not done with him yet. So what we need to do as conservatives, and I'm going to end with this, What we need to do as conservatives is we need to make sure, no matter who the opponent actually is, between whether it's Biden, whether it's Kamala Harris, whether it's Pete Buttigieg, because I've heard that being thrown out, whether it's some unknown somewhere. What we need to do is get behind him. We need to mobilize. We need to make sure that we vote in November. Vote to make it too big to rig. Too big to rig. All right, that's it for me for tonight, folks. Do me a favor, if you would, please, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It's free. And once you sign up, follow the American Perspective channel. Also, too, if you are over on Rumble and haven't done so yet, please hit that thumbs up button. It should be right about here in the video. And if you're on the phone, supposedly you have to close the chat, hit the thumbs up, and then come back to the chat. And make sure that that Rumble is made aware of these videos that I do make. We will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Saturday, so we will see you an hour later, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.